You are.
Have fun, take a deep breath.
Give them hell at the end. Good luck to you.
Fight like hell like we do every week. You are the best here.
Brett, be affirmative. You told me to get on. Info. Ready. Ready. Go slow. Green, green, green. Lock it down, lock it down.
I'm destroyed, and I just got drove through like 6 times on the 14th. What the f*** is he thinking? That is the stupidest thing I've seen in my career. Literally.
Everything you described is accurate.
Haven't even finished the second stage yet. Half the field's wrecked.
Record. Hell yeah.
11 got it.
Proud of you there, Matt. Good job, pal. Thanks, man. Good job all day.
Great work, my man. Great work.
Keep putting yourself in position. We'll win our share, right? We got one back today, brother. Good job.
Therefore, great job, guys.
And welcome back to Racing in the Draft. My name is Mark. Thank you for joining again for our breakdown of the USA Today 301 from New Hampshire Motor Speedway this weekend, or what may be a damp and wet New Hampshire Motor Speedway. Fingers crossed that the Cup Series gets as lucky as Xfinity does tomorrow, and they are able to get the entire race in close to scheduled on time. But things do not look great. But before we head to New Hampshire, let's head back to Iowa for the inaugural Iowa Corn 350 at Iowa Speedway. Actually ended up turning out to be quite a good race. Surprisingly, not surprisingly, it turned out a lot better than I thought it would. It looked like after practice that tire issues were going to plague the race and be a real issue. But it ended up being quite the opposite, I guess. Tires held up. The cars were balanced. They were able to race for 100-plus laps on tires. Probably a little further than I would have liked to have seen. The left side tires lasted a lot longer than they definitely should have. But either way, it ended up being probably... a couple people on some of the podcasts I listened to say it was the best short track of the next-gen era. And honestly, I can't disagree. Short tracks being under a mile in length. The Bristol spring race from earlier this year was probably better, but it was not really planned. It was kind of just by happenstance. So, this one, I guess this one really wasn't planned either. They had, a Frankenstein-looking of a track with the mismatched pavement, but it worked out, and it ended up being a really good race, and Brian Blaney is now locked into the playoffs and had a very dominating performance most of the late afternoon, early evening in Iowa. Let's take a look at the optimal lineup from the Iowa 350, where Brian Blaney did have quite a dominating night, leading 201 laps and scoring 117 points. Whew. We don't see a whole lot of 117 points lately in Draftkings for the Cup Series, but Brian Blaney definitely got one this past weekend. Ricky Stenhouse Jr., I kind of had a feeling about him. He'd had 3 wins previously. I think I discussed that in the video. And especially starting 35th, he had some really good strategies. I think we discussed the strategy calls being something to definitely start to keep an eye on. If you follow the leader, you're just going to follow the leader. If you do something a little different than the leader, or do something to trap half of your opponents a lap down, you end up having a decent race. And Ricky Stenhouse Jr. and his crew chief definitely did that. Christopher Bell had another good race, but this track was very similar to Richmond and Phoenix, so not too surprising there. That seems to be kind of in Christopher Bell's wheelhouse. Alex Bowman, again, just putting up top 10s after top 10s this year, coming in 8th. Austin Dillon having a good race, starting in 36th, coming from the back. And Chase Elliott, just like his teammate Alex Bowman, Chase Elliott just keeps putting up top 5s and top 5s and top 5s, and had another top 5. So can we expect something similar? this track's a little bit longer, not much, but a little bit longer and a lot flatter. This is kind of like it's kind of like they doubled the size of Martinsville for this weekend. So we'll see what we get when we dive into all of that. But down below here is also some other drivers who ended up having pretty good races. And, you know, kind of like this chart showed, I mean, some of the guys that I thought would come out of the 30s did. Martin Truex Jr. definitely. Austin Dillon ended up finishing 19th. So this kind of ended up somewhat as expected. I mean, Justin Haley ended up having a really good day. Joe Logano kind of is starting to get a rebound going. He's just a few points out of making the playoffs on points now at this point. Can he continue to right the ship for this year and get himself into the playoffs? There is one driver who is surprisingly out and really might be looking to just get a win. Kyle Busch. But Justin Haley with a solid 13th place finish, and Carson Hocevar with a solid 14th place finish. Our optimal lineup challenge after 17 races: Brad Keselowski still 2 up on the field at 7. Noah Gragson, Tyler Reddick, Ty Gibbs, Kyle Larson, Christopher Bell, all with 5. And then we've got a whole host of other drivers below them, but we still have not filled out this entire chart. By this point last year, I think we were almost completely full on this optimal lineup challenge chart. So the cream has kind of started to rise to the top and separate themselves. All right, practice speeds from last week. I mean, once again, the track changed so much, and that the practice speeds really didn't seem to... That and everybody was on different strategies on fast laps. We discussed that also last week. So, you know, it's interesting to see how this ends up deciphering out. But Iowa being a new track, 50 minutes on a practice session compared to the typical 20 minutes on a practice session, it definitely kind of... I didn't put a whole lot of effort, or I didn't put a lot of thought into what the practice speeds were, because it was just that there were just so much differing strategies. And I mean, as we see, I mean, Chase Elliott was probably the only one that was in the top 5 of practice, who started in the top 10, who finished in the top 10. The only time it really kind of seemed to show is when we look at the bottom 8 priced drivers. And this kind of gave us an indication on who to look at taking. You know, Ricky Stenhouse Jr. had a practice rank of 12th. He started 35th. Well, that's a pretty big swing right there between the two. And he ended up finishing 5th. And he was 2nd in Draftkings points. Justin Haley, practice rank on 4, was starting in 19th. He ended up finishing in 13th. So good for him. I mean, Corey LaJoie even backed up. So he started 24th. His practice speeds was in the 14th. And he finished 21st, which is, I mean, it was 21st in DraftKings points, but still at $5,700. Sometimes that's all you need from value drivers. Harrison Burton had a practice speed of 7th, which was a little bit abnormal. Even though I guess the Fords tend to practice a little bit faster than they race. Started 25th. He had a 20th place finish. So good on Harrison Burton. You know, not surprising. I think Harrison Burton might be out of his ride next year, but you know, that's still all speculation and rumor. And he was 18th on the DraftKings points side. So I think there might be, like I said, I think last week or the week before, I think out of the practice speeds area, the value drivers is kind of where we're seeing the best correlation to who to take and who not to take when it comes to the value drivers. So I'm gonna, like I said, I'm just kind of putting this information out there, kind of observing it, and kind of seeing if there's any reason to continue to follow it or if it's a waste of time. It seems like this page seems to be the best bang for the buck. Everything else kind of seems to be very hit or miss. So we'll kind of keep diving into it and keep seeing if there's anything there. All right, we are headed to New Hampshire. Motor Speedway for the USA today, 3:01. New Hampshire is a 1-mile track, and as you can see, it literally looks like Martinsville on steroids. It's just a huge paperclip. It's considered a short to intermediate track. It's 1.058 miles in length. It's only 2 to 7 degrees in the corners, so literally to no banking. The race length is 301 laps, which will give us some Dominator points of 210 total Dominator points, from laps led of 75.25 and fast laps of 135.45. So we definitely want to probably target a potential Dominator. This is kind of one of those tracks that it's a little tougher to pass to the lead other than on restart. So once somebody kind of gets out to a lead, unless they ended up having some type of issue, missing a corner, those types of things. But if they kind of run a clean race, it's a little difficult to get around them. So running position is going to be kind of key. And, so taking some people that start up front, finish up front is definitely something we definitely need to target. Other track comparisons, even though once again, we're at a track that really doesn't have much to compare to. I mean, you could put Martinsville in there, but it's only half the size. Richmond, it's 0.75 miles, but the banking is much greater. The speeds are a little bit less down the straightaways. Gateway could be very similar because it's got super long straightaways. Turns 3 and 4 are very, very similar to what we see at New Hampshire, but then 1 and 2 is much higher banked. You've got Nashville that's got a really long super speedway or backstretch. Phoenix, it's the same length. So I guess in some way all of these tracks combined kind of give you a very basic, simple New Hampshire Motor Speedway. But it's unique enough that it tends to end up having a pretty good race. They typically have long green flag runs, which then leads to potential Dominators. So we definitely want to target at least 1 to 2 Dominators. Other optimal lineups, as we can see here from the past 2 years at New Hampshire, both of these years are from the next gen era. Martin Truex Jr. both times have led 254 and 172 laps in the last 2 races. Martin Truex Jr. ended up finishing 4th in the 2022 race, and last year's race he ended up finishing in 1st. And Martin Truex Jr. Take that home again, or can Christopher Bell, who has won his 4th straight Xfinity race today at New Hampshire, take home the win? Who did get the win in 2022. So this pretty much seems to be a Martin Truex Jr., Christopher Bell, Toyota, Joe Gibbs type of day tomorrow. Can that be replicated again? Wait and see. But this kind of is lining up to be a Toyota style track. Can the Fords and Chevys rain on their parade? Well, Mother Nature might. But hey, I put up a poll on who you think could dominate or win this race. I think I put up there Truex Jr., Bell, Blaney, and Elliott are the options. So make sure you vote in that. And if I get to something else as we get through this video, we'll put another poll up. Other races that I said compared to would be Gateway and Richmond. Richmond, Martin Truex Jr., there he is, his name again. 228 laps led. Kyle Larson with 144 laps led. And Richmond is definitely a Toyota dominated track typically. Gateway's a little bit different, where Austin Cindric got his win. Can we see an Austin Cindric do something similar? The track is very similar in a lot of ways, like I said, except for in turns 1 and 2 where it's a little bit more banked. But maybe they bring the same car for Austin Cindric. Can he repeat? It's really hard to tell. We didn't have qualifying today because it rained, and we only got a total of 7 laps of practice. And one of our favorites didn't even make it onto the track, or didn't score a lap, Christopher Bell. So they did use the weird matrix for qualifying, which does have your points leader, Chase Elliott, atop for the start in tomorrow's race. All right, these are the kind of the stats from the last two races at Loudon, and I included Iowa and Gateway in this, and we're looking at the top 15 in DraftKings points and where they started in the race, and whether the front row starters made it. At least one per race, at least in the Loudon or the New Hampshire race. In 2022, it was 2. But we've had nobody make the top 15 that started 31st or worst. I think that changes this year. We've got some guys that are starting back in the 30s that I think could easily make it in the top 15 in points. I'm not sure they make it quite to the optimal, but it's definitely somebody that we might want to look at and target. So, but it really kind of looks like starting 20th or better is really where the meat on the bone is really kind of falling for DraftKings. 21st through 30th, there's a few people to potentially look at, but the real meat on the bones, looks like about 11 drivers are coming from the top 20 starting spots. So just kind of keep that in mind when you're putting your lineups together. Don't go absolutely gangbusters on people starting in the 30s. At least the stats show that typically is not the best play. And as I said, we did get a total of 7 laps of practice today. Thank you, Mother Nature, for raining on our parade and letting us figure out if anybody's fast or not fast. Because Carson Hocevar, of all people, who's never raced a race at New Hampshire Motor Speedway, had the fastest time. So, I mean, not that Carson Hocevar's not fast, but he's never been to New Hampshire before and turned the fastest laps in practice. It was only 7 laps. Really hard to judge what that actually means. And honestly, I don't think it means much of anything. But because I'm tracking it, I'm tracking it. So, Carson Hocevar, Michael McDowell, Brett Keselowski, William Byron, Zane Smith, Joey Logano, Denny Hamlin, Josh Berry were the fastest in practice. The slowest in practice were Ty Dillon, Harrison Burton, Austin Dillon, and Daniel Hemrick. And I guess you could put Christopher Bell there because he had a total practice speed of 0. So that was our practice speeds. I mean, once again, I don't put a whole lot of credence behind everything that we saw in practice today, but because I've been doing these value drivers, here's kind of what we've got. We've got Eric Jones, Ty Dillon, John Hunter Nemechek, Corey LaJoie, Zane Smith, Harrison Burton, Daniel Hemrick, and Cosgrella. And also make sure that if you are doing your lineups, Ty Dillon took over for AJ Allmendinger, who originally was on the roster, has been switched out for Ty Dillon. So that is a slight change in DraftKings. If you downloaded the entry list 2 days ago, it has changed. All right. But, I mean, Corey LaJoie and Zane Smith both practiced in the top 12 and are qualified, or matrix qualified, 26th and 34th. So if we're kind of holding things true, maybe those are 2 people we kind of look at. And to be honest, I don't love the Corey LaJoie play starting in 26. It might be a little bit further up than I want. But the Zane Smith having a 5th fastest speed lap, and starting 34th, maybe there's something there. And Zane Smith definitely needs to get his ship righted. All right, let's get into our driver by driver breakdown. And like I said, I do have practice information on here. I'm not going to cover it probably a whole lot. I don't think I mean, 7 laps is not enough information to really get us much information. That, in my honest opinion, if it rains like they say it's going to tomorrow, I mean, I did look at the radar earlier. It may push north, but if it does rain, we're going to end up racing on Monday or Tuesday, and it's going to be bright sunshine, and it's going to be completely different. I think it was like 62 degrees, and if the sun starts shining there, it'll be 80 degrees. So I'm not sure what practice speeds are really going to matter. All right. Christopher Bell, $11,000, the most expensive guy on the board, starting in the 4th position. Good for Christopher Bell. This is a track that is definitely lined up into his wheelhouse. He really excels on these mile to 3/4 to even half-mile style tracks. He did win here in 2022. He's got a 9.4 average finish at the tracks we're comparing to, and those tracks are above his name here. New Hampshire of 2022-23, Richmond from earlier this year, Gateway from a couple weeks ago, and Iowa from last week are the 5 tracks that I'm comparing to. And those 5 tracks, Christopher Bell has a 9.4 average finish. He did finish 29th here last year. I can't remember exactly why he finished poorly, but I'm sure it was either a wreck or a tire or something happened. But his total full race history at New Hampshire is 4 starts, where he's got 1 win, 2 top 5s, 2 top 10, 2 top 20s, and a 15th place average finish. So we'll kind of see. I mean, Christopher Bell definitely is somebody who I would potentially look at as one of the guys that could easily get up front early, stay up front, and lead a ton of laps. He probably has the best average finish that's starting in the top 5. So if he can get his way to the front pretty quickly, which, I mean, because we didn't have much practice, it's kind of hard to say, and especially since we don't know what Christopher Bell's practice speeds are because he didn't turn a practice lap. I do like Christopher Bell to potentially be a dominator. I also like him to be a potential win. So with all that said, I definitely do like Christopher Bell. I have him ranked 3rd at my ranking system. This rank is for Draftkings. It's not necessarily for wins or finishing positions or anything like that. It's much more where I think he may rank in the Draftkings world and probably how much I'm using. And my usage over here is 35 to 40%. This is based on 40 lineups that I put together. I do hand put them together. I've got about 25 of them finished at this point. And I kind of have a general idea of where things are headed. So this usage is does vary a little bit, but it's going to be probably 35 to 40% is what I'll have with Christopher Bell. I also expect Christopher Bell to be probably heavily owned. He'll probably be at least 30, if not 35% owned. So I'm probably right in line with the field on Christopher Bell. All right, Denny Hamlin, next in line here at 10,800, starting 14th. He does have 1 win, which was at the Richmond race earlier this year. And at the like tracks that we are looking at, he's got 2 top 5s, 4 top 10s, 4 top 20s, an 8th place average finish, and he finished 7th here last year at New Hampshire. His 30 total starts, so 30 times he's won 3 times. Over a third of the time he finishes in the top 5. Over 2/3 of the time he finishes in the top 10. And 27 out of 30, he's finished in the top 20. Well, he's starting in 14th. So probably a good chance he's going to at least finish where he starts. Probably going to have a much better day than that. I definitely think he could easily win this thing. He could dominate. 9.4 average finish for his total track history. I do like Denny Hamlin a lot coming from the 14th position. There's a little bit of place differential here also. And Denny, over the last 2 weeks, has had some really, really bad luck. So hopefully Denny Hamlin can rebound. This would be a good track for him to rebound. And I will have a decent amount of ownership with him. He does come in ranked 2nd on my ranking system, 40 to 45%. All right, make sure you hit me up in the chat. If you have any questions, thoughts, concerns, make sure you hit that like and subscribe button. Let me know what you're thinking tonight. Who do you like and who do you not like? I don't know why the Rumble stream is not working correctly. Oh, because it never started. See if that works. Sorry about that. for the people on YouTube. I also stream on Rumble. So, well, it'll be okay. All right. Next in line here, Martin Truex Jr. at 10,500, starting in the 7th position. I do have him ranked number 1 on my ranking system. Martin Truex Jr. saying he's going to retire last week. I think he gets a win. This is kind of his home track. You can also say Dover's kind of his home track. He's got family that lives up in this area. He's also got family that lives down closer to Dover. Anything kind of in this northeast territory, I guess you can call Martin Truex Jr. kind of a home track. I can't wait till we go to Pocono and they're like, this is Martin Truex Jr.'s home track. Well, I thought we just went to his home track. Either way, I think there's going to be a lot of fans out there that are going to really be cheering Martin Truex Jr. on to a win. He's probably going to want to get a win here. Like I said, this is one of his favorite tracks, and he runs really well here. An 11.6 average finish over the last 5 races that we're comparing to, and out of his 30 total starts, his average finish is not quite as good as Denny Hamlin's, but it's an 11.3. 9 top 5s, 15 top 10s, and 27, which is the same as Denny Hamlin, top 20s. It can't quite match the win total as Denny Hamlin with 1 win, but it's definitely somebody I have my eye on. He is definitely somebody who could easily dominate. He has dominated the last 2 races here at New Hampshire. He's definitely somebody to keep an eye on. I think between he and Christopher Bell, they could easily be the 2 guys that lead a lot of laps. And I'm sure Denny Hamlin will have something to say about that. But it's kind of funny. We're talking about Denny Hamlin, Truex, Christopher Bell. Well, what all 3 of those drivers have in common? They all drive for Joe Gibbs Racing. Do you think Bell and Truex would work in a lineup? So expensive. Bell is starting in 4th. Truex is starting in 7th. Yeah, you can easily fit them in the lineup together. I'm just trying to think. Yeah, I mean, there's some pretty decent value plays down towards the bottom that I would target. I mean, you also have, I mean, it's almost hard to fathom that Kyle Busch is $200 away from being in what I consider to be a value play. And I consider a value play anything $7,500 or less. And I think Kyle Busch is now priced at $7,700 this week. Which is a head scratcher, other than I know he's just been running absolutely awful recently. But it's also Kyle Busch. So I really think that he has the potential to turn things around. He's going to need to turn things around if he's going to make the playoffs. He also doesn't have a win yet this year, and he has a consecutive winning streak going. So can we put Martin Truex Jr. and Christopher Bell in the same lineup? Absolutely. The only potential downfall to that is I honestly think they're the best 2 options for potentially dominating this race. Now, they could split and share a lot of that load. And that's why I don't necessarily mind having both of them there. But I would run multiple. If I were trying to pull that type of strategy, I would have a lineup with Martin and Bell in it. Then I'd have a lineup with just Martin in it. And then I would have another lineup with just Bell in it. So you're kind of running the gambit and you're covering your bases with that play. And that's kind of how I start to build my lineups when I'm building those 40 different lineups, is I kind of start in the process of like, okay, who's my favorite driver? I mean, this week it's probably Martin Truex Jr. or Christopher Bell. Denny Hamlin's also right there. Okay, so let's start with the first one. I put a Martin and a Hamlin, or Martin and a Bell, or Hamlin and a Bell, and that's kind of how I mix match those 3. And then I go, okay, who's my 4th driver? And then depending on pricing, I kind of start to spread that out. And then I go, okay, who's the 5th driver? And I kind of spread that out. And then I go to the 6th. Well, at that point, probably don't have enough salary cap when you've made that first one, because typically they're of who you think is going to dominate or have a really solid finish. You're not really targeting the value plays at the bottom. You could also flip that and start with your value plays and see how much room you have left at the top. So that's kind of how I build my lineups. There's 100 different ways to build lineups. That's just how I end up building mine. But that's Martin Truex Jr. But yeah, you could absolutely play both of them. Because now if they were first and second pole and outside pole, one of them's going to be optimal or in the top 5 or the top 10 in points. The other one's not. It's so hard to get first and second into an optimal lineup and have enough salary cap to pull anybody else in. It kind of narrows the field a little bit. So it's a little difficult to get the first and second place guy into optimal lineups. That's why typically you don't see it. But you could also be contrarian. It's also very dangerous. If one of them has a bad day, that lineup is done. Ryan Blaney, 10,300. Our winner from last week. Congratulations, Ryan Blaney. Welcome to the playoffs, sir. Even though he was pretty solid in points. Starting outside pole. He does have one win, which was the Iowa race last week. Prior to that, though, you got to think, this is a 16.8 average finish at the 5 tracks we're looking at, and that's with a win. So, honestly, he is very kind of hit or miss when it comes to how this gets played. It's either he hits on it and he's really, really good, or he misses a little bit and he ends up running 15th. And honestly, Ryan Blaney has only finished in the top 5 twice out of 11 starts. So the odds are not great for Ryan Blaney. But could he be there? Absolutely. Momentum is definitely something in NASCAR, and it's something to potentially think about. But I don't know if I'm only running 10 to 15%. If we'd had more practice laps and we'd had more of an idea of exactly what to expect from Ryan Blaney, maybe. But his average finishes are not quite where I want them to be. So I probably have faded off of Ryan Blaney. Next in line here, Kyle Larson, $10,000, starting in 19th. He's starting in 19th because he got taken up by Daniel Suarez last week. Good job, Daniel. Now, he did put himself in a little bit of a sticky situation. Probably could have waited on that one. He had probably the fastest car in the field last week. So I see both sides to the Kyle Larson. Was it his fault or was it Suarez's fault? I think the honest thing is it was more Suarez's fault, but Larson probably should have waited a few laps. He could have probably easily gotten around Suarez. So, but because of that, he is starting in 19th. As good as Kyle Larson is, the best thing about this is Kyle Larson starting in 19th is there's a ton of place differential. The bad thing is, it always seems to be when he gets kind of stuck in this muck. Back here, a fender gets rubbed in, a tie rod gets broken, he gets a little too antsy and wants to get to the front a little bit faster, and things happen. So it's a 60-40. 60% I think he gets to the front just fine, finishes top 5, maybe even gets a win. There's another 40% that Kyle Larson does what he did last week and sticks his nose 3 wide and with an inexperienced driver and ends up getting taken out for the day. So I think Kyle Larson will be heavily owned. I've got him 30-35% of my lineups. I like the play, but there is a 60-40 shot. 60% he makes it up there fine, and 40% he ends up in the same boat he was last week. So you kind of have to weigh that with Kyle Larson. He's probably one of the best drivers in NASCAR, maybe one of the best drivers in North America, maybe the world. There's arguments about that. Never seen him go out and drive a Formula One car, so Have to wait for that argument. Maybe he does that next week or next year. I don't think so. But he also is very aggressive, and it gets him into a little bit of trouble sometimes. So take that for what it is. I'm a Kyle Larson fan. As you can see, I'm wearing one of his shirts again. But $10,000 starting 19th, a ton of place differential. Definitely. But he's going to be probably pretty heavily owned. Joey Logano here in 9,800, who is dying and searching for a win to get himself locked in the playoffs because he's on the outside looking in. One of the best average finishes at the 5 tracks we're looking at. 3 top 5s, 4 top 10s, 4 top 20s, a 7.8 average finish. He finished second in this race last year, and a 14.1 average finish for total of his 25 total starts at New Hampshire. He's got 2 wins, 9 top 5s. I mean, it's pretty consistent. Joey Logano is definitely somebody to probably keep an eye on, but Wiz Logano has not been good. I've got him in 5 to 10%. I mean, honestly, this is what I had early on the take. I could see this going 10 to 15%, probably about the same type of ownership that I've got in Ryan Blaney. I'll have with Joey Logano. Out of the two of them, I think Joey Logano probably stands a better chance of having a better finishing spot than Ryan Blaney. At least averages kind of tell us that. So, William Byron, who, I mean, finished second last week. Are we starting to see a resurgence of William Byron? He kind of went dormant there for, I don't know, 5, 6, 7 weeks. And now all of a sudden, Willie B gets a second. He, probably another 10 or 15 laps, he would have been challenging Ryan Blaney for that win. $9,500 starting in third. This is another driver that you could put as a potential Dominators type situation. He's starting right up there. So I definitely see William Byron being somebody that could easily do that. I've got him at 10 to 15% of my lineups. I could see that slightly increasing, not by much more. I get a little bit nervous with the top 5 starters when we don't have a whole lot of practice information, or I think they're dead ringers for finishing in the top 5. Like, I mean, Chase Elliott, I've got some ownership on, but he has the most top 5 finishes of anybody else in NASCAR this year. So, Alex Bowman has the most top 10 finishes. The problem is Alex Bowman's not getting top 5. He's getting 8th, 9th, or 10th. Well, that's kind of where Alex Bowman's starting. So that doesn't do you a whole lot of good. But can William Byron go up and dominate with Christopher Bell or Truex? Maybe. He's starting far enough up front. He's starting in front of those guys, so maybe he gets there first, gets the first stage kind of win, which would give him a decent amount of laps led. I don't mind the William Byron play. I've got 10 to 15%. I think that probably is going to be closer to 15%. It might even go slightly over. So 11.8 at the 5 tracks we're comparing to, and a 15.5. He's never finished in the top 10 at New Hampshire, so kind of keep that in mind. But William Byron's been doing things the last few years that William Byron's never done before. So, Chase Elliott, $9,200, starting from the pole position. Congratulations, Chase Elliott. Welcome to the top of the peep. $9,200. I mean, there's nothing in me that says I don't think Chase Elliott, he could win, sure. I think this is a 4th or 5th place type finish for Chase Elliott. He's going to have the pit stall that's going to help him out the best. He's going to have that first out. But he's got some really, really fast guys behind him. And we look at his average total finish at New Hampshire, he's got a 14.4. He's only finished 20% of the time in the top 5. Doesn't have a win. I mean, he's easily capable of winning it. I'm not negating that. Do I think he's as good as Bell or Truex or Hamlin or even Logano at Hampshire? History says no, but so this is a tough call with Chase Elliott. I have 10 to 15% on it. So it's not an all-out fade by any means. Yeah, and we don't have much practice speed. I mean, he was 19th out of 7 laps. I'm not sure that gets you. And they already knew they were not qualifying. They were going to qualify on the metric system. So was this strictly his true speed? And if that's the case, what was everybody else doing? I don't know. I don't mind the Chase Elliott play. Don't love it. Don't hate it. Brad Keselowski, though, $9,000. I tell you what, you want to talk about a guy that is starting to really hone in on this next gen car, and that's kind of dangerous because when Brad Keselowski has been on top of his game, he's been near unstoppable. I mean, he's a champion in the sport for a reason. $9,000 starting in 9th. Practice was fast. I mean, he only did 4 laps. Who cares? I'm not even talking about practice. It's just habit. I start with practice. Sorry about that. A 6.6 average finish, though, at the 5 tracks we're comparing to. I think that's the best average finish of the field. All 5 races, he's finished in the top 10. He finished 5th in this race last year here at New Hampshire. Out of his 23 total starts, he's got 2 wins, 10 top 5s, 16 top 10s, 20 top 20s, 9.8 average finish. I really like some Brad Keselowski. I think Brad K is potentially one of the best plays of the week. But I also think he might be pretty heavily owned. I'm not sure, though. I think a lot of people are going to go after Truex. They're going to go after Bell. They're going to go after Larson because he's got a bigger place differential. They're going to go after Hamlin because of the same thing. I think Brad K may end up going under-owned. I like Kaz. He's been on the short tracks. Yeah. I mean, this is where, I think Brad K is, as Matt the Family Guy says, what's our sneaky pick this week? And I really can't call Brad Keselowski sneaky. I just think he may go under-owned. So I'm going to probably be more on the heavy side with Brad K. So, I mean, his 4 laps of practice were fast. Woohoo, whatever that means. Somebody I'm probably going to avoid is Tyler Reddick at $8,800 starting in 12th. He is getting better at this short to intermediate flat style track. But this just really is not truly in Tyler Reddick's wheelhouse. He's starting in 12th because of the matrix, but his practice speeds were 29th. 14th place average finish at the 5 tracks we're comparing to. He did not finish 29th. He and Christopher Bell both could not have finished 29th. So there is my mistake for the week. Let's see. Where? Tyler Reddick. That's Xfinity. Let's see. Let's go up. Go. Draftkings. Loudon. 2023. Tyler Reddick. He finished 6th. He's qualified or started 6th and finished 6th. 14 fast laps, no laps led. I mean, pretty bad. Pretty hard to do when Truex Jr. leads 254, 301. So, I mean, that one was okay. 2022, Tyler Reddick started 13th, finished 21st. Gateway 5th to 4th, but Gateway is a little bit different of a beast, slightly. Iowa was not good to Tyler Reddick last week. Finished 8th to 22 in Richmond. He's never good at Richmond. Finished 10th, 19th to 10th. So that kind of lets you know where Tyler Reddick stands. It's just, I mean, I think 12th is kind of where he finishes. He could finish maybe 8th, maybe 14th. So I think 12th is kind of where he's going to end up falling. So I don't love the play, don't hate the play. I've got 5 to 10% usage. This is a Gibbs Toyota track. hasn't turned out yet to be a Toyota track. Maybe if 2311 ends up having a good day tomorrow or next week or tomorrow, then we talk more about Tyler Reddick and Bubba Wallace. But right now, I'm a little bit of a fade on Tyler Reddick. Ty Gibbs, $8,700. He's only got one start here. He finished 27th and he's starting 18th. Coin flip. Do you think Ty Gibbs ends up running good? Or do you think it's a typical Ty Gibbs day where he'll come out on fire to begin with and then ends up being mediocre? Still think Ty Gibbs gets a win this year. Becoming a little bit more leery on my Ty Gibbs will get a win this year play, but I still think Ty Gibbs gets a win this year. I think it's here. I mean, the problem is we don't have any practice beats. We don't really know what these guys have at this point. And because the Matrix is starting him in 18th, it's going to be a little bit of a tough uphill climb. But the Gibbs cards are really good here. I think there's some room for Ty Gibbs to move, so there's place differential potential here with Ty Gibbs. So I'm more playing it on the place differential play that he goes from 18th to 8th. Not that he's going to go out and dominate or win. So, Ross Chastain starting in 8th. I mean, kind of like Tyler Reddick, this short, flat, under 1 mile length. I mean, it is a mile, 0.058. So I know it's over a mile. But this mile style track really doesn't fall under Ross's. It's kind of like a Tyler Reddick. Where Ross is good, Tyler's good. The two of them kind of mirror each other. So Ross Chastain, the 5 tracks we're comparing to, is a 13 average finish. Now, he did win Phoenix last fall. So that's right at a mile. He finished 23rd in this race last year, 5 starts total at New Hampshire. No top 5s, only 2 top 10s, and a 17.8 average finish, and he's starting 8th. I don't have a whole lot of usage on Ross Chastain this week. Chris Buescher, admittedly has said this is not one of his favorite tracks. He's never done fairly well here, but he said he's been getting a lot of coaching from Brad Kay on how to race this track, and he had one of his better finishes last year in 15th. So can he improve on that? I mean, he finished 15th, been getting help, starting in 15th. I mean, maybe he gets up to 10th, 9th, maybe. I'm taking a shot in the dark because I think Chris Buescher's going to end up getting under-owned. So this is kind of one of my sneaky picks that I'm kind of pinpointing. So the stats are not here. So, and that's kind of why I kind of like this play. So when the stats really aren't here, but the underlying message is, sorry, Tennessee just hit a home run. Hopefully they can make a comeback. I'm watching the College World Series. But I think there's a shot here. And I'm willing to take some shots on it. 20-25%. So Chris Buescher is kind of one of my sneaky plays. And it's much more just a gut feeling and kind of listening to his interview and there being some underlying words that he kind of said that I picked up on. I can't remember exactly. And I don't want a copyright strike by playing the video. This is not really a NASCAR news type, but go back and listen to his interview on USA Today when they were in rain delay for practice. He had some comments, and it kind of made me intrigued. Alex Bowman starting in 5th. He outkicked his coverage, even though he's the most consistent top 10 driver in the league right now. But at this track, 12 total starts, 22.8 average finish, 20.4 average finish. I think this might be where the top 10 streak, or takes a little bit of a ding. I'm not sure he finishes in the top 10. There's no indications. I mean, he finished 14th in this race last year, which honestly was almost one of his best finishes. So, I mean, I think on a good day he gets a 9th, and if you're starting in 5th for DraftKings, that doesn't do me a whole lot of good. So I am a fade on Alex Bowman this week. Just as like I kind of am with Josh Berry starting in 10th. I think Josh Berry has the capabilities, kind of like, maybe kind of like a Tyler Reddick. I think he could stay close to where he starts. It's an 8th, maybe a 12th, maybe an 11th, maybe a 14th, maybe best at 6, but that's a big hill to climb. He's never raced, at least here in the Cup Series. In this car, the Xfinity car was loose as all get out for today's race. And this car this next gen car has a tendency to bite you on the loose side if you're not careful. Not that Josh Berry's not careful. He's a really, really, and this track fits his wheelhouse. The problem is he hasn't raced here in this car much. And to start in 10th has to be slightly worried. It was 8th in practice. Okay. I'm probably going to be even on the field. I think he's probably going to be 5 to 10%. So, Kyle Busch. Do you think Kyle Busch ends his unlucky streak here? Or do you think it continues? And honestly, I don't know. There's nothing on this stats page other than starting in 30th and the name is Kyle Busch that helps him here. 27.6 average finish at the 5 races we're looking at. Finished 36th in this race last year. 14.8 average finish. Compared to where he's starting, that's not bad. Then we look at his, yes, it's practice. It was only 4 laps, but at 26th. I'm going to have a little bit of ownership, more than I probably normally would. Because he's not a 30th place driver, even with a crappy car. And this track's long enough that he could potentially keep the car within a lap and get lucky dogs and get back on lead laps. This is a horse pill that I will probably swallow tomorrow reluctantly, and be 15 to 20% owned, if not potentially more. Holy smokes, Tennessee just hit another home run. Okay, let's go. They're down 5-9 now in the College World Series finals. It's not that I'm a Tennessee fan, but I've got my dad's fiance lives in Knoxville, so they're a big Tennessee fan. Go Vols. But I like Kyle Busch. I know we're talking about racing. I'm watching College World Series, but my son plays baseball and I love baseball. And I just do these videos at 10 o'clock. This happens to be on at this time. Get to deal with me. Sorry, rambling. Squirrel. So yeah, I could completely understand fading Kyle Busch. I could also see the potential major upside. Kyle Busch could easily go out here and get the win that he's been looking for. The problem is we don't know. 4 laps of practice is nothing. We have no earthly idea. Probably, if Kyle Busch has a really good day, we're probably looking at a 4th or 5th place finish. On a really, really good day. Probably looking for maybe a 12th. And I think that's what Kyle Busch would be actually probably really happy with. So I think a 12th place finish. Well, coming from 30th, that's 18 places of place differential. Like I said, he's $7,700. $200 away from where I consider it to be value. So, yeah, I don't mind taking some shots at that price tag. Back when he was like $9,000, he was having crappy races. Yeah, that's too expensive. Compared to Tyler Reddick, this does fall a little bit more into Bubba's wheelhouse than Tyler Reddick's. $7,500 starting in 17th. Don't love it. 12.4 average finish at the 5 tracks we're comparing to. He finished 8th in this race last year, which was his best finish out of 6 total starts at New Hampshire, or a 17.7 average finish. I think he finishes slightly better than where he starts. Not sure he gets into a top 10 type situation. It's probably more like he's going to finish 15th. Maybe on the best 8th. Does that really? I mean, at 7,500, there is some value there. So I don't mind having a little bit of ownership on Bubba Wallace, but I don't have a whole lot. And he also has just not been as off as Kyle Busch, but he hasn't quite been on. Hadn't quite been on it lately. So a little bit of nervousness there. Noah Gragson, I mean, $200 cheaper. You got Noah Gragson starting in 21st. I mean, that doesn't say a whole lot. 20.5 average finish at the 5 tracks we're comparing to, but at this point, Noah is also. I mean, at this point, it looks like he's vying for a job. I think it probably is going to end up being at RCR, and taking his Bass Pro Shop sponsorship money over there. Question is, does he run the 33 or does he run the 3? And what do they do with Austin Hill? I don't know. Lots of thought processes on where all these drivers' silly season goes, but once again, I'm not a news channel. I'm a Draftkings channel, so we'll stick to what I'm doing. I have lots of opinions on where drivers are going, and I probably should make a video about it one day. But either way, starting 21st. I mean, we've kind of entered the realm of, I think these guys are going to finish where they're starting. I mean, I think Noah Grayson's 14th to 18th place finish. Slight place differential upside. There's always potential he goes out and gets a 9th place finish, but I think it's much more that 14th to 18th place finish. So don't love it, don't hate it. I've got him in 10 to 15% in case he happens to pop off. Chase Briscoe. Is this the chase, or was that the chase? Or was this the chase? Which one's going to Joe Gibbs to take over the 19? Is it Briscoe or is it Elliott? I got really confused. Larson told Elliott good luck, but Bell said Briscoe good luck. No, it's Briscoe that's going to the number 19 car. So congratulations, Chase Briscoe. The genie's out of the bottle. I don't know what to do with Gragson. The equipment last year was so bad. Man, I missed this show. Dang, I'm sorry, Mark. Dude, I'm halfway through. I'm at $7,200. You're here. And guess what? It's on YouTube. I'll rewind it. It's okay. It'll live in infamy. At least until YouTube deactivates me because I said something stupid. Don't be sorry. You showed up. Hit the like button. Tell your friends to hit the like button. You're fine. Thanks, Matt. I'm glad you made it. Chase Briscoe starting the 23rd. By the way, Matt and Andrew, next week at 10 o'clock, next Saturday, I will not be able to be doing the show because I will be, probably 15,000, 20,000 feet in the air. Flying to Orlando, then to Cape Canaveral or Space Coast for baseball tournament next week. But I will be live Sunday morning, bright and early. I don't know exactly what time yet. Depends on what time we get in, we get settled, and all that fun stuff. But I plan on having most everything done and ready before we take off. Good luck, little Mark. His name is Trey, because I'm actually the second. And Trey's the third. So good luck to Trey. Yeah, it'll be fun. I was just wishing SpaceX was going to have a launch, and it doesn't look like they've got a launch scheduled for next week. Really disappointed. I really wanted to see a SpaceX launch. So you know what that means? I'll have to go back to Florida. Maybe I'll have to go to Daytona. See one of the Daytona races. I have never been to Daytona for a race. I'll have to put that on the bucket list. Trey. I mean, I guess it really doesn't matter. But we call it, we spell it Trey. Chase Briscoe, 7,200 starting 23rd. I do like the Chase Briscoe play this week. He is feeling good about himself. He has got a ride in a rocket ship for next year. Not that the Stewart-Haas 14 was not a rocket ship when he got into it, but the Stewart-Haas whole thing is just kind of faded. Where Joe Gibbs is on the, is still, I mean, probably, in my opinion, the second best team in NASCAR. Hendrick is probably first, and Penske's knocking on the door for both of them. So he's getting into easily top 5 car. where he's coming from probably realistically a top 20 car. So Briscoe's got to be feeling good about himself. He's worked really hard, and it is well deserved. So congratulations, Chase Briscoe, on getting the 19 car. As long as we're talking about the right Chase. I really think Bell is a strong favorite of mine to win, but I'm hoping Elliott will be slightly contrarian. Yeah, I mean, I agree with that. And I think the problem with Chase Elliott being contrarian is he's been so darn consistent in the top 5 that even from the pole, if he goes and leads 60 laps and finishes 4th, that's still not a terrible day. So, does that put him as the top play of the week? I mean, maybe not. Martin Truex Jr. or Christopher Bell go out and lead 150 laps and finish first. They're going to be the highest. They're going to be the highest point getter. It doesn't mean Chase Elliott's not going to be second or third. The question is, can you afford to play a Truex, a Bell, and a Chase Elliott? And I think Andrew was talking about this earlier, that you could play Bell and Truex together. I'm not sure you could play a Bell, a Truex, and a Chase Elliott together, not without scraping the bottom of the barrel. And there's some plays down at the bottom of the barrel that you can get to, that you can possibly make it play, and I may end up having one of those lineup. Not sure. Does that even? Let's see. Does that even play? Pull up. Up. All right. All right, let me pull this over here. All right, so what did we say? We said a Bell, a Truex, an Elliott. All right, what do we got left? 19,300. You can go Haley. You can go on Austin Cindric. $6,200. I mean, you could even go Zane Smith. You still have $900 left, which I'm fine with. I'm fine with anything up below 1,000. I don't think it's the optimal or best play, but yeah, you can actually make that work. That actually is not that bad of a lineup. I think you run into trouble with a Denny Hamlin or Kyle Larson, messing some of this up. But Kyle Larson has a tendency to screw things up, and Denny Hamlin has definitely had a tendency to screw things up lately. So that is not an awful lineup. So. You like Hocevar for some reason. I mean, there's no reason not to like Hocevar. I mean, you want to talk about one of the most consistent. He's coming up. What's his price tag? Hocevar is $6,300. I mean, what's there not to like about Hocevar at $6,300? I mean, he is the most probably consistent between 10th and 20th driver in the series. Yeah, I mean, there's no reason not to like Hocevar. Lost my page. There it is. Got too many damn tabs open. Sorry about that. Yeah, 6,400. Did I misprice it? I'm not going to go look because I screwed that up the last time. He'll be here in a second. Either way, when I get down here, but I do like the Chase Briscoe play. I mean, same thing can be said about momentum, about life, marriage, kids, birthdays. The things that make you feel good in life make race car drivers feel good in life too. Just like winning. Winning is it fixes most of the problems, at least in the short term. Well, if you can compound it, then it just gets better and better. Until it doesn't. Until you end up being Kyle Buescher, Austin Dillon, and then really, really crappy. The problem is you just need a couple of sparks of good luck to kind of make you feel good about it again. So, Chase Briscoe, new contract, new greener pastures, things are going right in his life. I think there's a play there. Could be absolutely crazy, but I think there's a play there, just like momentum. Austin Cindric, I think this is the sneaky of sneaky plays this week. And it could burn me really bad. I have 25% ownership in Austin Cindric. Starting 29th, this track races a lot like Gateway, where Austin Cindric, probably was not the best car. Bell and Blaney probably had the best cars. But Austin Cindric was probably the third best car. My honest opinion is they probably took that car back to the shop. They cleaned it, replaced whatever parts they needed to replace, didn't change anything else on it, and took it to New Hampshire. I expect this car to be much faster than 29th. Is it a top 5? I don't know. I don't need it to be a top 5. At $7,000 starting 29th, I need it to be 12th. And that's going to be real close to being optimal. The problem with Austin Cindric is he never really just finishes 12th. It's either I'm going to finish 30th or I'm going to finish 5th. There really is no middle ground with Austin Cindric. So, maybe this changes. But, yeah, I'd like the Austin Cindric play. I'm not sure I like the Daniel Suarez play starting in 11th when you have a 20.6 average finish at the 5 races we're looking at. You finished 16th in this race last year, and you've never finished in the top 5, and only 3 times in the top 10. So, yeah, not a whole lot of interest for Daniel Suarez. We're over an hour at this point, so we're going to kind of boot scoop boogie through here. Michael Medalla, $6,700 starting 25th. His average finishes are about abysmal. 23rd at the 5 tracks we're looking at, 31.6 at New Hampshire. Woo-wee. But honestly, it's just a gut feeling. And I've always said, I'll be honest and straight up with you guys. It's a gut feeling. I'm taking some Michael McDowell starting in 25th. It's a gut shot. There is absolutely nothing in the stats that tell me that this is going to be a good thing. So, I do have some ownership there. I do like the Ryan Preece play. Ryan Preece cut his teeth on modifieds racing at New Hampshire and at these Northeast tracks. Why he has a 26.3 average finish other than he's just not in great equipment. But starting in 31st, I like the Ryan Preece play. I like the Austin Cindric play. Those are kind of my sneaky picks. Brad Keselowski could potentially be a sneaky pick because everybody else around him, people are going to go after. So I like the Ryan Preece play. I think it's sneaky. Don't think a whole lot of people are going to be on him. Yeah, I think it's going to be probably 10 to 12% owned, but I don't think it's going to be high by any means. I'm going to be 25% ownership in Ryan Preece and on Austin Cindric. Those two guys go out and collect each other. I'm screwed. But, yeah, and Family Man's going to be on Hocevar. Todd Gillen, I don't mind the Todd Gillen play. I just think he's starting too far up. I don't think his ceiling's much better than 16th. I don't think it's any better than 10th, and I don't think 6th place is a place differential when you're starting that far up. Does me a whole lot. So I'm going to be a fade on Todd Gillen. I think he could easily start where he finishes. He's been doing really, really well this year. And he just signed a multi-year contract to stay in this car. So good for Todd. Proud of him. He's great for the sport. His dad's great for the sport. But I'm not sure he goes much further than 16th for tomorrow. And I could see that I could see the argument from Family Man about Carson Hocevar. Super consistent. I mean, look at his average finish. He's got 3 starts. He's never raced a New Hampshire, but Richmond, Gateway, Iowa, he has a 16.3 average finish. Those are 3 tough tracks. The issue that I potentially have with Hocevar is if you watched his, I need to go back and watch his Gateway to see what side of the track he was best at. If I'm remembering correctly, he was much better in turns 1 and 2 than he was 3 and 4. I don't know why that's telling me that, but watching Hocevar over the history, I think he needs a little bit more banking, because Carson also has not had great experience at places like Martinsville. So that would be my only argument with Carson Hocevar, is a lot of these other tracks have a little bit more banking, and I think he needs that banking to kind of help him rotate through the corners. But I could also see where he's a solid 17th place finish, and at 6,300, yeah, maybe. Austin Dillon, 6,100. I mean, starting 22nd, it's 2 spots worse, $200 cheaper, with a much better finish, and he finished 9th last year, 16.6 average finish at 14 total starts. He's never finished in the top 5, but I mean, almost all the time, 16.6 average finish. I don't love the play by any means, but I'm intrigued with the Austin Dillon play. And I don't think he's completely kicked the monkey off his back of bad luck, but I think he's at least shed half of it at this point. He's starting to get a little bit more consistent. Once again, I'm going to get into a different topic, but does Austin Dillon retire after this year and let Noah get into this car? That would be interesting. Just saying. He is the heir apparent to RCR and becoming the guy who runs it. So, Justin Haley, 6,100, starting 24th. 18.2 average finish, 21.7 average finish at this track, and he has been performing 20%, 30% better than he has at all of the other tracks that he's run this year. If that's the case, he's going to finish 13th again, starting 24th at 6,100. I like the ownership of Justin Haley, and everybody's talking about him. Once again, it may not be full momentum where you're winning races, but it's momentum of I feel good about life. And Justin Haley, you should feel good about life right now, because there are a lot of people watching you and talking about you. You have turned this 51 car, which was dog poop, into smelling like roses for what it was. So good on you, Justin Haley. And I hope you stick with RCR. Or not with RCR. I hope you stick with Rick Ware. They took a bet on you. You took a bet on them. I hope he rides that horse for a little longer. Don't just jump ship and go over to the Wood Brothers. I think that's the wrong move. I think you stay where you're at. Keep building this team. You can really put your name on something and say, hey, I really helped make that happen. Justin Haley could be the next Martin Truex Jr. who turns Rick Ware into Furniture Row, that ended up turning into a championship caliber team that ended up getting sold for lots of money, and Martin Truex Jr. ended up in the 19 car at Joe Gibbs. Same thing could happen to Justin Haley. I think he needs to stick with it. I think he's that talented. Ricky Stenhouse Jr., you outkicked your coverage, even though you didn't actually do it. It just happened to be where you finished last week. Yeah, not interested. You're starting too far up for what I like. Eric Jones, $5,900, starting 32nd. The problem is, talk about this every week. What the is going on at Legacy Motor Club? I'm not sure they know. I think it's, at this point, it's just okay, let's just keep throwing stuff at the wall until it sticks. And if it happens to stick, then great. I mean, to be honest, if you're at Jones, you almost have to be like, oh my God, get me out of here. But I think he sticks with it. I think he helps right the ship. I mean, there is no other reason to not right the ship. You've got a multi-billion-dollar owner partnered with two 7-time champions. This team should be performing at way better standards than they are. And just something hasn't clicked. And they'll figure it out. They've got enough money to figure it out. So I just don't know if this is a race that I go, oh, they figured it out, because I haven't seen anything that says they figured it out. So I've got some ownership because there's a lot of place differential if he ends up finishing 11th. But I'm not sold on it by any means. Ty Dillon, you're starting in 36 in this 16 car unless it's on a road course. Hasn't done anything. So, yeah, not a whole lot of interest here. I mean, I think they may get to 31st, 30th, and that's not going to be enough. So, not a whole lot of interest here. John Hunter Nemechek, I mean, we just talked about legacy. John Hunter has just struggled with this next-gen car. And it sucks because I think John Hunter's a great kid. He is a lot of fun to watch in the Xfinity and Truck Series. I just wish Legacy would have a much better car for him to drive. Because he's got the talent. Sometimes it short fuses on him. Sometimes he gets a little too aggressive. But it's a lot of fun to watch. So hopefully they can figure that out. Corey LaJoie, $5,400 starting in 26. Within your average finishes are 30.8 and 28.9. Honestly, I think that's his ceiling. I think the best he finishes is where he's starting, so I don't have a whole lot of interest there. Zane Smith, you want to talk about just put your hand in the lottery jar and see if it pulls out and ends up being good. I'm going to have some ownership because starting behind him is not any better. So he's kind of the best of the worst. But it sucks. I mean, Zane Smith's great truck and Xfinity driver, now he had done Xfinity, just truck. But he's phenomenal truck series. Just has not had the best of luck in the 71 car. Maybe that turns around. So I've got some ownership, not much. Harrison Burton starting 27th. You're just starting too far up, in my opinion. Daniel Hemrick starting in 33rd. I mean, I could see some shots on this. At least it's the same car as a 16, but you're starting, 7 spots further back. I could see taking a couple shots. Not much, though. Kraz Grala starting in 35th. I mean, yeah, I don't. Other than starting next to last, I don't have a whole lot of interest here. So, the guys that I like the best to be highest owned, and this is going to be the guys that it's you're damned if you do and damned if you don't. Because if you don't have Martin Truex Jr. in your lineup and he goes up and lights it up and leads 200 laps, and you don't have him in your lineup, you're screwed. If you don't have him in your lineup and he wrecks, you're going to look like a hero. But I think that's going to be closer to the 40% of, I think you're going to miss out, especially between him and Bell. And then I think these two are going to be in the 50% own range, Truex Jr. and Bell. I think Hamlin and Larson are going to be right behind them in the mid-40s. And then after that, it's oh crap, I don't have much money left. I don't know what to do. And that's why I think Brad Keselowski is a real intriguing pick starting in 9th. I think he gets overlooked because I think a lot of the target is going to be with these 4 guys. And I think you have to have these 4 guys in your lineups somehow, some way. And that's why I like to run multiple lineups, because I can run out of 40 lineups, I can run 20 lineups with, 20 lineups with, 20 lineups with, and 20 lineups with, and kind of mix match them. I don't quite go that heavy on all 4, but it's something along those lines. I definitely like the Ryan Preece. Ryan Preece has 15 modified starts at this track, and he's won one or two of them and finished, I think, 8 top 10s or top 5s. He knows how to drive around this track. I think he's due for a great shot. Austin Cindric, I think, is due for a great shot. Kyle Busch, easily one race flip of a switch, and Kyle Busch goes from 30th to finishing 5th, if not better. I don't love the Tyler Reddick play. Ryan Blaney makes me nervous. Logano could easily win this race and get himself locked in the playoffs, so I don't mind the Logano play. Byron has been a little bit hit or miss lately, so I could see a fade there. Ross Chastain, Josh Berry, in my opinion, are starting too far up. Todd Gillen starting too far up. Carson Hocevar, Matt likes him, or Family Man likes him. I don't know. Austin Dillon, I don't know. Eric Jones, until his luck turns around, don't love the play. Justin Haley, I do like the play. So that kind of gives you a quick overview of what I like and don't like, kind of where they're ranking, where they're starting, those types of things. So kind of keep that in mind when you're building your lineups. Either way, hopefully we get this race in tomorrow, because I really need to work on Monday and Tuesday. And if it doesn't happen tomorrow, it might not happen Monday, because all the storms are just slightly north of the racetrack. I mean, literally a 50-mile swing southwards in these storms, and we're not racing until Tuesday. So everybody have good thoughts and push all of that weather up to Canada. They don't need it in New Hampshire. I could use some rain. It literally in Richmond, we haven't had a drop of rain the month of June, and we're now at June 22nd. So we're 3+ weeks, and we've got 100-degree heat. So yeah, my poor grass is deader than a doornail almost at this point. So either way, good luck everyone. Winners watch mark. Well, I mean, I hope so. That's what we're shooting for. I mean, honestly, Matt should be having a channel when NFL comes around. He says he does pretty well there, so, and I have to believe him. But either way, let's see what's our poll at. 7 votes. Who is the favorite to win or dominate? Bell with 57%, Truex at 42%, no Elliott's, no Blaney's. So you want to be contrarian, play the Elliott and Blaney play. What I'm going to say. If you don't want to be contrarian, play the Bell and Truex play. I'm a little bit more on the Bell Truex play. So, but either way, I appreciate you tuning in. Make sure you hit the like and subscribe button. You get notified every week. Next week, remember, I will not be on Saturday night. It will be Sunday morning, live from Space Coast or Melbourne, Florida. Fingers crossed. I've got decent internet speed. I should. It's at a pretty nice Airbnb. So that I think I've actually streamed from my phone before. So if worst case scenario I get that, then that's what I get. But we're in the heart of Florida. We should have pretty good high speed internet once I get down there. So approximately 12 hours later than I normally do. Let's say 10 a.m. East Coast time, live from Florida for, where are they? They're racing in Nashville next week. It's actually at 3:30 or 4 o'clock start, so it's a little bit later, so you'll get plenty of time to get your lineups in. So make sure you tune in then. Make sure you hit the subscribe button, hit the little bell icon to get notified when I do go live or if I make posts, to let you know when I am going to go live. I appreciate you tuning in. Have a great weekend. Let's get this race in tomorrow, and let's hope for some rain in Virginia. All right, guys. Have a great evening. Thanks. Bye.
Get a good deep breath. Get ready to roll here.
Only about one thing tonight, getting the W's, so got to be around the end to do that.
Get ready to roll tonight, boys. Let's go have some fun.
Don't get me any more fired up than I already am.
All the way to the checker. You're fine. Nobody's got to run. Checker time, baby!
Hey, oh yeah.
Proud of you there, Matt. Good job, pal. Thanks, man. Good job all day.
Great work, my man. Great work. Keep putting yourself in position. We'll win our share, right? We got one back today, brother. Good job.
Great job, guys.
Excellent work, my man. Excellent work.
Thank you.
Man, that's awesome. Set out with a goal we got in here, bud. Thank you very much.
Really proud of you, man. Drove your butt off tonight. We had the fastest car here, bud.
Probably killed our deal there. Just feel like I gave one away.
Yeah, boys. Way to rebound. Great job.
Great job, bud. Really good job. Appreciate you hanging in there with us all weekend.
What a weekend. Good job. Thank you.